Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode. And this time with none other than Mr. Damien. Everyone knows him as Mr. F1 Clapped. And I've been trying to drag him for a very long time to have a 4K session, me and him. Usually we'll be arguing or talking or commentating on X, but this time we're taking it uh, lives. And thank you very much, Damien, for being here with me. Please give us an introduction about yourself. And for the people who don't know you only based on social media, I would love for them to hear about you.
Well, first, thanks for having me. Um, yeah, I'm excited to do this and actually talk about Formula One with you instead of just troll. But yeah, I guess I don't really know much to say about me. Just average Canadian guy in Alberta in the cold right now, just hanging out.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I've been in Toronto and I know how cold it is, and I know Alberta is a little bit just way overboard, I would say, at this stage of the year. Thank God there's no F1 racing there, otherwise Mercedes would be lapping everyone four times,
Oh
given
yeah,
how much they love cold temperatures. Let's get straight into it. Max Verstappen, four-time world champion. Yep, there is the merchandise. Um, right. So we've seen Max win four, and I've seen you wrote something. You said that 2021, 2022, the comeback of history. I was like, okay, this is either pure rage bait or a lost moment. But 2024, where do you rank this one?
it's really tough. Um, each championship is unique, obviously, but I'd probably put this as his third best title, I would say.
Wow.
Um, I think if we're just going off of like his performance in a season, I think it's going to be hard to top 21, regardless of how the ending was. Just the level he was at for the season was very high and consistent. And then 23, I think, deserves a spot really close to the top because every single weekend he was just maximizing. He made very, very few mistakes. And then 24, it's still a great championship, but he actually had to fight for it a little bit. And it wasn't the easiest or the smoothest sail to get there. And then, of course, 22 is the last one, but I feel weird ranking it last. If you look at that season just from his perspective, it's a highlight reel season. You still got 15 wins, 14 to first in Spa, and you've got a whole other the biggest comeback that I wrote. It's just because it was the biggest points overturn, but people really
Yeah.
like to dig at that one. So
I mean, I completely get it. It's the biggest overturn, and without context, it does look like it. And we both know, like, it came in the result of the engine DNF and everything. But it was at that moment when everyone thought that Ferrari had the package and they could win the championship, and then Red Bull, when they got it together, uh, that car was untouchable, and Max Verstappen was untouchable, and even Perez, man, did he get a win or two that season? I forgot. He got
I think he
Monaco,
got
and I
two
forgot
wins.
he got Monaco, and I forgot what other race he got.
Singapore.
Baku. Oh yeah, Singapore. Thank you very much. Yep, when he had the penalty and he had to basically push to make the gap between him and Leclerc. So, yeah, and ever since that dominance just continued into 2023. Um, Everyone walked into Singapore knowing Red Bull will have that one-off race where they're not gonna be good, and that was the one race everyone was just waiting for because they want to see that one single one single race where somebody could win other than just Max, basically. Um,
Yeah.
this season overall, I think what helped in the championship it would be just that good start when the car was dominant and he just won seven consecutive races. Some of them, which I'd say more contributed into McLaren bad strategy in Canada. Have they pitted early, Lando would have been ahead, and then add on top of that, Spain, Lando should have won that, but if because of the bad start and having to climb and fight from the back, did cost him the chance. But overall, I think what made the season much better is we have seven different winners. They're all multiple race winners. What are your thoughts
Yep.
about this? Where would we rank this season given how many race wins we've seen and how many drivers have won so far?
I think this season should be ranked pretty high. I don't know where I'd place it in the last decade. I don't think it's better than 21, but I think it's one of the best seasons we've had. When you look at the stories that happened this season, Charles in Monaco was a big moment that had been a long time
Yeah,
coming. You see Lando get his first win in Miami, which is also another long time coming moment there. Oscar's first win. A couple of surprise wins, with George in Austria. Lewis in Silverstone was a huge, huge moment in the season. Very big, 945 days wait, and then to break the record on your home track. Big
yeah,
storyline as well. Max started really strong. He won, I think, four out of the first five. He had that brake fire in Australia,
yeah.
which was unfortunate. But following that race is where it took a bit of a turn for the more competitive season, which I think overall was really welcomed by a lot of fans. Biggest moments for me, I would say, where I would rank it really high would be I did feel good for Charles in Monaco. The Monza win was nice, but I think I would put the Monza win. Actually, yeah, I put the Monza win higher than Monaco for me, for Charles. And then for Lewis, Silverstone, and then for Max in Brazil. Obviously, just being his fan, that was a huge race. Um,
Uh, I agree with you, and but I would say Charles in Monza is not bigger than Charles in Monaco, and I'll explain why. Because we've seen Charles win in Monza 2019, like we've witnessed that, and it was. I don't think it was as big as the one in 2024. The only difference between 2019 and 2024 it would be that now we have a bigger fan base. There's more
yeah,
exposure than before. I mean, the culture of racing in Monza itself and Ferrari fans and Italy knowing that a Ferrari won in Monza, that's something is always going to be there. But having more international exposure like the sport has right now, you can see the difference in numbers. Like you go back to see, let's say, even on social media. I don't like to use social media as the main um, uh talking point, but like you see like posts from 2017, 16, 18, 19, and you see even the engagement was low at that time, and then you come into these seasons like now, even for the less things that happen, you see there's a bigger exposure, which means there's more fan base, more engagement, and a bigger crowd. So I would still say the Monaco win being a Monegasque and the first Monegasque to win in Monaco and in a Ferrari, I don't think anything would top something like that. So yeah, I would put Monaco number one. I will follow it with Lewis in Silverstone, as you said, like 900 plus days without a win, and the first driver to win a race after passing the 300 races mark. Um, I would add third Verstappen win in Brazil, phenomenal drive, something out of this world. As much as I hate to say it, but it is what it is. And then I would put Lando's win fourth, respectively. Obviously, it was a big win for him. It's his first win, first
yeah.
test, and he just delivered in it, and he did it. Uh, I mean, we look now into Mercedes, like this car, for example. Yeah, oh no, let's not jump into Mercedes. Let's just stay in Red Bull.
Oh boy.
What do you think is gonna happen now next season? I can tell you right now, Perez is staying in that team. What and there is talks that next year's car may not be great. What do you think this is gonna go?
Well, start at the beginning. I think the beginning of this year was just crazy for Red Bull and the Red Bull fans, with Christian Horner and all the noise around that incident there. That was really overpowering. And at some point, I think we all thought it would affect them on the track. and it did. Adrian Newey left, multiple other team members left, Jonathan Wheatley left. So they did take, a blow to their personnel this year, which is, the heart and soul of that team, right? So that happens, and then we go into this season and everyone thinks we're going to just win every race. It doesn't happen that way, obviously, as we talked about. But as for next year, I think the car will be competitive realistically. I think they know the direction they need to take as far as adjusting the suspension and other aspects of the car that weren't working well this year, and limiting the performance they could get. Do I think it's going to be enough to win another title for Max next year? I'm going to say 50
Mm.
50. I think they're a little behind. I think when you look at where McLaren is right now and Ferrari, I would probably put Red Bull with maybe just a notch ahead of where Mercedes is right now. And it's not a big gap, but they're going to have to really, really nail everything. The only bonus here is a little bit of added wind tunnel time. And as far as Perez goes, he's lasted this long. What's to say he won't get another season? I don't I don't know if it's just money or anything else that keeps him in the seat. But I had a tweet the other day that basically just said he's to match Max's points this year, he would have to double his current total and add 99 additional points. No matter how you slice it, it's just not good enough in a top front running team. You need somebody that's going to be able to come in on weekends and get a good points haul. And if they can't win, they need to be able to finish as high up as possible. And I just don't think that Checo's done that since probably Miami last year. He had a few good races this year to start the season, but the context there is that just the other cars weren't anywhere to be found.
Um, I think they're in a situation where he has a contract they cannot get themselves out of it.
Yeah,
Most of the sponsors that sign with Red Bull and they guaranteed that they're gonna pay their due and everything. It was based on uh Perez is driving, we're sponsoring. Now, if Perez is out, we're out too. So you are in a situation where uh Perez, I know a lot of people don't realize this. He is almost now, I would say, a national figure, given the
oh
exposure
yeah, for sure.
he has in Mexico. There's a lot of, obviously, his home fans loves him, either performs good or not. The idea of having a Mexican race winner in the modern generation is something means a lot for the Mexican fans. And ever since Mexico, ever since they raced again in Mexico, it became this huge story of you know like, oh, we have a Mexican driver now. He's in Red Bull, and he was in a championship winning car, and he won a couple of races, fair. But now you're like, yeah, when you look at performance wise, you're like, okay, hearing this from multiple different people and people who work close to that team and close to him, and kind of try to paint the picture from different sides. So, like, one side is saying, oh, there are issues in his car, and the other side is saying, like, oh no, he has performance issues. So you kind of try to just draw the line in the middle, and you don't know what it is because you don't know who's saying right and who's saying wrong. So in a way, I would still say it's more on him than it is on the car. That's my judgment on it. So
Yeah,
you see like yeah, so Red Bull, they're like, now if we have to break Perez's contract, we have to pay him a salary of 2 years, which is 40 million. And I
yeah.
don't
I
think
mean,
Red
it's not
Bull
cheap.
have yeah, and I don't think Red Bull have the financial capacity to pay that. Well, they have to pay the bonuses of well, they're not gonna pay. So I mean, you have Max Verstappen now. They lost the constructors, which is where all the money is, and then next season, there's a chance they might not be in the fight for either championships. Maybe Max will be close, but that's what's being said. So you basically not gonna make any money next season. And if you
Yeah,
want to take out this driver or you want to take out Perez, then you have to pay 40 million, so you're losing more money than you're actually getting any money from either sponsors or any other thing. Um, but we'll see how things pan out next season. And if the car is bad, I don't think anyone is gonna look at him and be like, "Oh yeah, you're performing bad," because everyone's gonna look at Verstappen how he's performing relative to what that car is doing. And yeah, the rest is just. But if the car can still win championships and win races and be in the fight for a drivers' championship, then yeah, more questions will be raised about how come Red Bull, one of the most ruthless teams we've noticed across the years, when it comes to the second seat after Daniel Ricciardo left, they are lenient in keeping an experienced driver. It's not any bad driver, but it doesn't matter. You perform well, you stay. You perform bad, you're out of that seat.
Yeah, as it should
Uh,
be.
yeah. Speaking of seats, George Russell won in Vegas. Uh, Good qualifying, clean, took pole, kept the lead, defended against Leclerc, won the race. And in his post-race interview, he said like, "I need the car. I want to fight Max Verstappen for the championship. It's about time I get that." Where do you think George Russell is gonna stand out now that his teammate is gonna be in a Ferrari, which is probably gonna be competitive? And Kimi Antonelli, what are your thoughts on him walking into the Lions Den against a driver like George Russell as a rookie?
I think George is a fantastic driver. He gets a little underrated sometimes just from who his teammate is, but realistically, George is really, really good. That Las Vegas win is a good example because, Mercedes isn't there every weekend, but
Yeah,
when they are there or even in and around that area, either one of those drivers manages to find the pace and make something of the car. And this weekend it happened to be George. Starting on pole, he maintained it. He defended well. He didn't put a foot wrong really anywhere, and he managed pace, kept his tires alive, kept a good gap. There's really nothing he did wrong. He did a similar race as something you would have seen last year from 2023 with Max at the front, just managing from the front. He did it really well. I think his mentality, give me the car to fight Max, is exactly what everybody should want to hear from these drivers. When the drivers say things like, Max is an exceptional driver, and then they don't back themselves after saying that, it's concerning, right? Like you can acknowledge
yeah.
guys like Max or Lewis or whoever as being, class of the field, but every driver should believe that they can take the fight to them. And I think it's good to see George say that and think that. And I would love to see him get a chance to fight Max and have a good battle with him. But whether those cars will be there next year is a whole other story. As far as Kimmy goes, I think Kimmy's going to do great. I think the talent, everybody has seen it, and talent will always kind of rise to the top as long as he works hard and has a good mentality about things. I think he's going to have a really good career. I just don't think he's going to do well against George in his first season, and then because he's young and he's coming into a top team right away. He's going to race against a guy like Russell, who's I would say probably a top five driver on the grid. It's a tall order for Kimmy, so I won't hold anything against him if he doesn't just handily beat George. I think we should all keep that in mind, and we should give him the time to develop correctly. And 10 years from now, when guys are discussing how good Kimmy is, they shouldn't reference his first three races against George Russell. It's a little unfair.
Well, the better question we should be asking, and I agree completely with everything you said. Can Mercedes and Toto be patient with him for the first season, or do you think Mercedes is just gonna be like, "Come on, do something and click"? This is
I
the
think they
first
have
time
to.
we're gonna. Sorry, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is the first time we're gonna test Toto in a situation like this. We're dealing with a fresh new driver. You know nothing about him. You don't know how. Okay, sure. Based on what James Allison and the rest of the team have said about him and the numbers they've seen he was doing in the tests, it sounds something he's doing something phenomenal. But a real life race scenario where you are racing other drivers, where you be looking at your mirror and somebody's gonna try to dive bomb and I'm not saying he doesn't have the skills to do anything against other drivers, and we've seen the example like with Colapinto, straight from F2, dropped into an F1 car, scores points, and that's a midfield car. He's gonna be racing people constantly. A race scenario is different, and a race weekend scenario is different than you get the car, go to some circuit, God knows where, Barcelona or Portimao or whatever, and just do hundreds and hundreds of laps. Whatever, qualifying lap and race simulation laps. I still agree with you. He is not gonna be a pushover. But I just want to know: do you think Toto is gonna be patient, or we could see Toto by the end of the season just be rethinking everything?
I think he has to be patient, and I think it's in his best interest and the team's best interest to be patient because you don't put all your faith in this kid for nothing. You obviously believe in what he can do, and I think it's just important to let him grow and develop and give him that support that he needs. Whether it's just because like I think he'll struggle with certain things about F1, like the tires, for example. Right now, they're horrible.
Yeah,
He's going to be coming
yeah,
into a world where he's going to have to manage at race pace for length at points in times to score points or to secure a win, for example. There's going to be other struggles as well. Qualifying laps may not be a big issue for him, but when you get into the whole, you versus your teammate debate, I think George Russell's one of the top qualifiers on the grid, top three easily. So, you start seeing the numbers pile up, like it's 10-0 for George, right? You have to be mentally able to process that and just get past it and do your own race. And then,
yeah,
there's a lot of noise that's going to come around Kimmy as well. Being a young guy, he's going to be compared to Max, right? A teenager coming into F1. The important thing for Toto to do, I think, is support him and back him even against Max. I think if you're his boss, you have to say things like, at this age, he's doing what Max did or better. And you have to, even if it's not true, you have to say those things because Kimmy needs to see that you believe it and you have that support. And I think that goes a long way. Like if Toto throws him to the wolves, it's going to reflect in his performance. So I think he has no choice but to support him and be very bold about it and let him develop and learn the tires. And then I think the rest will take care of itself.
yeah. I completely agree with you. And moving on, before we get into the constructors fight, obviously we are witnessing an end of an era. Uh, these are the last two races of Lewis Hamilton with Mercedes, and thank God, finally Mercedes decided to bring back the white racing suit for at least this weekend. Obviously, as part of the partnership with the IWC. Uh, it's just so refreshing to see those white racing suits. To be honest, on both George and Lewis, I enjoy it far more than I didn't know how much I missed looking at those white racing suits until I saw them on them. Um, everyone is not everyone. No, I'll be unfair if I say everyone. If I say Team Malaysia part of it, no, I'm crazy. A lot of fans that are not Lewis fans are taking out Lewis out of the equation when it comes to his fight against Leclerc, and we obviously already seen the what I would say the preview of what to expect between their fans, and I don't want to talk about that. But
Yeah.
do you think it's gonna be a tough first season for Lewis there with Ferrari? And obviously, as you know, like we don't age backward at the end of the day. So you think it's gonna be, or you think he's just gonna walk into there motivated, new chapter, just fired up?
It's really weird answer. I think it's a little bit of both. I think he's walking into the most storied team in the history of the sport. There's never going to be a team that can top what Ferrari is. So to suit up in red and get in the red car, I think is a really special thing. And I think Lewis will very much cherish those moments and want to perform. And motivation is a big thing in the sport. So I think he'll do well. I don't think he'll beat Charles in the first season. I think if we're just looking at Lewis now, on any given race where the car is there, he's rapid, he can race. That's not gone, right?
Yeah,
He hasn't really lost that. I think where he struggles the most is just execution and qualifying right now, trying to bring the tires into a window, trying to put his lap together. there's little moments that take him out of the contention or the fight in qualifying, and that's going to cost him as much as it does against George, against Charles, if not a little more. And it's hard to come back through the field in a competitive field right now. You know, if next year is anything like this year and we've got 4 cars fighting for wins, if you're not qualifying in the top 4, for example, it's going to be very hard for you to slice through the grid. And I
Yeah,
think if he can't put together these laps and execute properly, because I don't think the speed is necessarily gone. I just think it's a problem with how he approaches the lap, whether he doesn't do a proper warm up lap or whatever it is that the tires just aren't coming to life for him. If he can't figure that out in Ferrari, it's going to be tough against Charles. And even in the race, Charles is no slouch. He's not an easy person to outrace. So I don't think Lewis is going to come into Ferrari and just do like a 2018 version of himself. I think he's going to have to really put together qualifying to have a chance against Charles. And it's not that I think he's bad or anything like that or he's washed. I just qualifying matters in a competitive grid. You know, this isn't 2022 where Max can qualify 10th and win with a spin in the rain, right? It's not the same.
yeah.
So I think if he wants to win, he just has to execute his qualifying laps better. And that's where it's going to have to start. From there, he's going to have to work on little things, but it starts there.
I mean, personally, I see Charles at the moment. He's the best qualifier on the grid. I just an opinion. I know Max output Max second, or for the season output Max fourth. Sorry, third. That's unfair. Third. I mean, given at looking at sometimes there were moments where I think it wasn't the car problem. It was just more of Max. You know, I mean, look. Even if Max wins every race like he did in 2023, and you walk into a season like this, you're gonna get moments where you're gonna be thinking, is it me? Is it the car? Is what's going on here? You know, like it just something it feels off. So you don't know where the issue is. So Max had, I'd say, it's harder to even remember them, but he had a couple of moments like that in qualifying the season.
Monaco for sure.
Obvi- there you go. And so yeah, and then you look into George qualifying, whatever that car can do, he will just put it there. You know,
Yeah.
I think his only biggest moment I would say was Mexico, when he dropped it and sent it into the wall. Was that in qualifying or
Lando's good too.
practice? I mean, Lando when he feels the car is just tuned down and he can just throw it in the corner. Yeah, he doesn't have to worry. He just like drives a metronomic and the car is just on pole. When the car is on pole, yeah, he has moments where I wouldn't say Lando crack under pressures, but this is his first proper season fighting at the front.
Yeah.
And he had a proper taste of what is it like to fight at the front. And not only that, he had to come up against Max and then Lewis in Silverstone, and then you have I wouldn't say George Russell because they weren't close anywhere around the season. So and so he had like 4 or 5 Charles Leclerc. So he had like 4 or 5 drivers he had to deal with.
Oscar as well. Yeah.
Oscar as well. So it just like a whole lot of baggage of learning. Is he gonna learn from it? I don't know, but I think next season, right off the gates, the McLaren is gonna be a rocket. They have a lot of time in the wind tunnel to use. Even I know a lot of people like, wow, if they win the constructors this season, wouldn't they have less wind tunnel time? Yes, in 2026,
Yeah.
not in 2025. So what wind tunnel time they will be needing to use is the 2023, where they finished fourth in the constructors. So they have a lot of time, more than Red Bull, more than McLaren, and more than Ferrari and Mercedes. So they're gonna be the team to look up to and be like, yep, that's the team that's gonna win it. Well, speaking of them, constructors, Leclerc, Charles, they're having a little bit of not the good vibes of for goodbye, and their car is good. And McLaren is a little bit off, and especially with Piastri, recent pace is a little bit not there. What do you think? Who's gonna wrap this championship? Constructors?
I think Ferrari will probably struggle a little bit in Qatar. I don't think they'll do as well there. I think McLaren will have a very, very good time in Qatar. So I think they'll lock it because there's only one race left after that. The gap is small, but for where McLaren should be in Qatar this weekend, I think they're going to win. They're one of those teams that are very adaptable. They have a wide setup window. We're expecting a lot of fast corners, colder track temps. I think they're going to be fine. I don't really know if Ferrari will have the car to do well in Qatar relative to McLaren. I'm sure they'll do all right, but I think this is the weekend that they'll lock it down. And
I mean,
I think it's just
sure.
also partially due to I mean Carlos has been okay. Yeah, he's at this point everyone knows what Carlos is, but I don't think he's gonna do anything this weekend that's gonna take away enough points from McLaren to make a difference. So I mean Charles will probably be in the fight, but we'll see.
I mean, so far, look, okay, I'm gonna bite on this one because I'm a victim uh, of what people or the trend of what most of the people say. And last couple of years, last 2 3 years, when we watch Ferrari, you know, like you either pay attention to them when something bad happened to the car, or oh my God, Ferrari pit crew, what have you done now? Or Ferrari strategist, what have you done? So, and in all fairness to them, this season, this team is a whole different entity. There were races where McLaren could have won, and Ferrari took it away from them. And
Yes.
biggest example, Monza. Nobody expected a one stopper, and Ferrari went for it and won. That's a team that's being aggressive in strategy. That's not a team that's not holding back, and not only just against McLaren, even in the races where they were up against the Mercedes, they were just simply aggressive. And looking at their form, the second half of the season 2023, there was a big gap between them and Mercedes, and they just closed it all the way up down to the last race in Abu Dhabi, where, well, if it wasn't for George, I would say Mercedes would have not won, took the second position in the constructors. So now things a little bit shaky between Charles and Carlos. And as I said, because we don't pay attention to Ferrari only when something wrong happens. I'm not saying that's the right thing. That's actually wrong. And again, give them credit for what they have done this season with the team, the drivers, strategy, everything. Vasseur is just on point when it comes to everything. I just want to understand where was the issue with Carlos and what exactly happened, because you see them before the race, all smiles. After the race, it's just like, we said this, we did, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? You know, and you obviously know this through their fans. So, do you think Carlos is just trying to bag as many podiums and wins as possible before he leaves to Williams? Because technically, he doesn't care now anymore about what Ferrari does.
I think he's just like any other driver would be, I think, when you've been let go suddenly. I think there's a little bit of ego there and probably feeling, maybe a little wronged. I mean, I can't speak for him for sure. It's just speculation, but wouldn't you want to prove that you shouldn't have lost your seat? So how do you do that, right? You race your teammate as hard as possible. You take points off them, you win, or whatever the case is. I feel like that's maybe a little bit of what Carlos is trying to do. Just trying to make it so there's that one last sort of charge in Ferrari where people can say like, oh, they fired the wrong driver. It's been really popular on social media this year, right? So let's say he has a good last 5 races, and next year Charles really struggles for some reason. He can play that narrative. I think that's kind of what he does.
Oh, I mean, it would be surprising if that's happened, but yeah, I agree with you. In his shoes, like he would get it. The way how he was, and the thing is, he's not a bad driver. Like,
He's not bad, no.
yeah, I'm not saying he's better than Leclerc. No, he's not. Carlos at his day, he is better than Leclerc. But Leclerc any day is better than Carlos. That's my take on it. So when Carlos wakes up and be like, today's a good day. Today I'm gonna have the best day of my life. That's the day where Carlos is untouchable against Leclerc. Uh, what are the backstage things? What's happened? I don't get them. I don't understand them. Maybe because I'm not following everything that's happening in Ferrari. So maybe Ferrari fans, Leclerc fans, Science fans know a bit more of the details of the backstage yapping, I'd say. But overall, I just feel like Carlos now, he just wants, maximize everything he's doing, win as many races as possible, get as many podiums as possible, just because you never know. They could be his last. There's
Exactly.
no
Yeah.
guarantee after his stint with the Williams, there's no guarantee any top team will take him, because him and Leclerc, okay, Leclerc is in Ferrari. Ferrari could look great next season. You're both at a stage of you're 27 and the other one is 31, or I don't know, 33. I don't know how old is Science right now. Is that 31,
Actually, don't
32?
know.
Yeah, so Science is in the 30s. Leclerc at 27. You're at the age where you have to be winning championships. I think Science knows that's for him almost over, or it's over. It's just,
Yeah, he's not winning in a Williams.
but unless Williams does a Brown GP by some miracle, then yeah, that's gonna happen. Other than
Yeah.
that, I don't see him winning anything. Um, the McLarens. Do you think even with having Lando and Oscar Piastri, who are together, less they're talented, but less experienced than Charles and Carlos. Like Carlos and Charles, they can have their blah 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 and all their fight, but when it comes to driving, and they know now the next two races are for the team, they know how to play that with the experience. Do you think there could be possible pressure on both drivers, the McLaren drivers?
I think I'm not sure how they would interpret it. I think that they need to just come in and race as best they can, but it's a lot easier to say that than do it. Um, Oscar in his position, being only his second year, he might feel a little bit more than Lando. I think Lando at this point might even have a sense of relief, as silly as that sounds, because he's not under the microscope for the title anymore, but there's still another title he can win. And I think that's something he would probably, really look forward to, is securing that constructor's title. And it's a win in itself, right? It's not worthless. I know the fans, we typically follow the drivers championship more, but when you're in the industry and you know that, the familiar faces that put the car together for you, that do everything for you, when they get a bonus from your hard work, it's like the only way you can really pay them back. And I think that Lando would really look forward to doing something like that. I mean, he gets a lot of flack on here for not a lot of good reasons, but I think he generally would like to do well by that team. He stuck with them, he stayed with them, and signed that long-term deal when he could have walked away. So I think winning a
Yeah,
constructors for Lando is still very important. So I think he'll be really motivated. I
yeah.
don't really know where I would place Oscar. I imagine he would be motivated too, right? But he's just hard to read. He's a lot more quiet. And then for Ferrari, I know Charles is really motivated, and he always is. So he'll be trying his best to take those points. And not only that, he wants to finish second place ahead of Lando. So he has stated that. I think the X factor is Carlos. There's nothing for him to gain, right? So
Mm. Everything's up to play. I mean, I agree with you. You mentioned a good point when Lando was announced renewing with McLaren. Was that in 2022, I think, or
I
23
think
at the start?
it was either early 23 or sometime in 22. I know they're, yeah, around that time.
Yeah, I think yeah, when 2022 or 2023, everyone saw that he renewed. Everyone was saying, which is this is something always comes back and bite people who were against. I was saying, yeah, his career is over. Oh yeah, you stayed in McLaren. You could have gone to Red Bull. You could have gone to Mercedes. The teams that they want to win. McLaren, look where they are. What are you doing to yourself?
Yeah.
But if he wins the constructors now with McLaren, well, he's gonna look good in the eyes of every McLaren fan and the eyes of a lot of people who even doubted his renewal with McLaren because let's face it, this team is the team that to look up to now, and the target is McLaren, not Red Bull anymore. That target is long gone off Max's back. We've seen him after he won Vegas. I think he was a little bit crying in the radio, which is something you would not expect Max to do after 2021. Because you would think, oh yeah, the relief of the first championship is gone. But then you saw him crying because he knows one of the two. It was a hard championship to win because given the circumstances ever since after Miami, and could very well be his last with Red Bull. That's my take. It could be
Yeah,
his
I
last
mean,
championship with Red Bull, not indefinitely. If if Ferrari or McLaren, let's say Ferrari after Lewis retires in 2028 or 29, whenever Lewis decides, I think 28, 29 would be too long. But if Lewis decides to retire, then nobody, nobody can go tell Lewis go retire. Nobody can go do that to Lewis with a huge contract like this. You cannot tell the man go retire. So if Lewis decides to retire from Ferrari, that seat could be very well his. And the same goes for Mercedes. If Mercedes they feel like their drivers are not doing much and they have the car, Max can jump on that seat, and none of these two teams can say no to him. So it's just gonna be a matter of Red Bull gonna do anything in 2026. So yeah, again, with the McLaren, um, I don't know. I have a feeling that Ferrari is gonna win the constructors. I could be wrong.
give me 1 sec. My dog's barking like crazy. Hold on.
No worries. Go ahead. No worries. Anyone here watching, who do you think is possibly gonna win the constructors? I need to hear it in the comments. Is it McLaren or Ferrari? Part of me, I feel like Ferrari is gonna do it in Abu Dhabi. I don't know why, but I don't know. Something tells me Ferrari is gonna win it.
Oh man. Okay. Well, here's the
Oh yeah.
problem.
Hello.
Sorry, buddy.
No, no, that's okay.
Um.
It's beautiful dog.
Yeah. So, sorry. Can you just repeat the last question because I think he got into. I don't know what he got into, but that's okay. But
Oh, what a beautiful dog. What's his name?
name's Kubo.
Kuba. Oh, hello, Kuba. Oh no, he doesn't hear me. Last question is, who do you think is gonna win the constructors? I'm saying it's more Ferrari.
I think. I think it's McLaren. I think it's theirs. Qatar is going to be good to them. I think Lando's going to walk away with something like that. Like the Denzel meme. Like I'm leaving here with something. I'm betting on Lando.
Orlando. Okay, let's see. I'm just thinking that Ferrari could do it in Abu Dhabi. Now coming to Qatar, and obviously we're reading the news, everything about the FIA. Hold on, let me see if I can pull this out. And well, Kubo, come here if you want to see some FIA drama. You might love it. Right. Where is this? So, okay. So you ready for this loss headlines? Let's
Oh
go.
yeah,
I'm gonna
I've
share
seen
it.
some of them.
I'm gonna share the screen over here. Sorry everyone, because I feel like I'm an old man trying to do this stuff. Well, right. I don't know if anyone can see the screen anymore. Anyway, here we go. This is one of them. No, I do not need this. Right, here we see.
Jeez, bud, what's wrong with you?
Mayor
Oh,
added
he got
that the
in.
recent controversial decisions to punish the drivers for swearing came directly from the FIA president, Mohammed bin Saleh. His view that the drivers need to be penalized for swearing, that is his view, and what has happened since reflects that. Stewards panel are meant to be independent bodies, and but Mayer said there are times when he has directly involved himself in making his views known, not with the stewards directly, but via his staff. All right. In spite of all the matters being resolved quietly and amicably, he's still upset and decided to fire me after 15 years of volunteering my time as a steward and a decade teaching other stewards and hundreds of hours of volunteering in other roles. I got a text from one of his
Wow.
assistants. Mayer said that Ben Salam felt an element in the right of review paperwork was a personal attack on him. I didn't write that part of the documents, but it was my job to present it, Mayer said. There was no intention of trying to cause a problem with the FIA, and I will continue as sporting organizer of the three US Grand Prix. This was such a minor point that it is baffling that anyone would take such an offense. Well, things are not looking, I would say, great.
I think anytime a representative of any organization or sport or anything like the FIA is in a negative light like this, it really tarnishes a lot of the hard work that the good people that make this sport go around do. And like I'll be the first one to criticize like race control for red flags with Hulkenberg on the side of the track and things like that, like no problem. But not every decision is black and white and not everything is easy. And what Mayor says there about training stewards in his free time and volunteering, all that stuff like that, that is the stuff that does happen behind the scenes to make the sport possible. And it's the stuff that the fans don't really get a lot of knowledge on, or they don't get exposed to. So it's nice to, to see that, but not, sorry, it's not nice to see what's happening to him, but it's
Yeah.
nice to kind of read that perspective. But with MBS, he's just, I think he's taken a lot of the shine off of the sport when it was unnecessary. He didn't have to do the swearing, penalty ban type thing the same way he did and enforce it. I think a lot of the drivers found it a little bit ridiculous. I understand, like, we don't want children seeing that or whatever, but I mean, realistically, it's 2024. These kids are on the internet at like age 10. They're gonna know what swearing is. If you're a parent and your kid's watching sports, I think almost every major sport has some amount of swearing on the screen, whether it's lip reading or just interviews that happen by mistake. So to fire a steward for something as petty as that is just a really good example of why people don't respect him.
Um, so I'm gonna go with two views over here, and people may not like me for this. And here's the thing. A lot of people I've discussed with regionally and people that I know in person, and they know him in person. And they told me, listen, there's a lot of people attacking this man solely for the reason of him being from Middle East. I know it sounds outrageous, right? So give me, hold on, hear me out. I was like, you're right. It's true. But the other bigger issue is this man is not doing anything that justify his position. Is he deserving of the position? Okay, you can debate that. Like it, did he deserve to be in that position? If you look at the recent FIA president, mostly they were rally drivers. You've got Jen Todd. I know everyone knows Jen Todd as the Ferrari team principal, but what's Jen Todd before that in rally? And Mohammed bin Salam is the same thing. He's like 15, 16 time FIA Middle East rally champion. Still, it's a record for him. But what you have achieved as a driver is something, and what you doing now, currently in the present, is a whole different conversation to talk about. So to the people that told me, oh yeah, there are people who attack him for him just being from this part of the region. Yes, it's true. There are people who are doing that. Yes. But what is he doing in that position itself? It's mostly like, when you're like, when you look at something like, I can't back you into this, listen, we tell you don't do ABC because you'll walk into the fire and you go walk into ABC, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying me, I'm saying what people are telling him. So if people's opinion at your position and nobody's questioning your position, people are just questioning decisions. People are telling you, hey, this decision seems a little bit overboard, which is if I'm gonna keep if I read this entire article right now, which basically says that they just told him, hey, this whole swearing thing is overboard, and he goes, okay, then next thing you send them a text message, you're fired. How do you want anyone to
Yeah.
work
Like,
with you? So again, to anyone is saying, it's about sorry, ignore this whatever BS headlines on the right. But yeah, here the main conversation is here over here. When you read all this stuff and you be like, well, what's going on? And I heard from both sides. There are sides who tell me, oh yeah, he's a very nice person. People don't know. And then I hear from the other side, people tell me, oh no, I do not like to deal with that person. You put yourself in a position where your reputation as the president is not safe. You should not be saying like, so it started from 2022. It should have been a clean slate. You're new, and I know you walked into the dragon's mouth because people just came off 2021 after Abu Dhabi, and people still hot over that. And you walk into 2022, and what do? Add more fire? No,
yeah, he
you're
needed to
supposed to
be
be.
smoother, right?
You needed to be the voice of the reason. You needed to be the person who just be like, guys, everyone chill, chill. And then you go after drivers, and then a lot of people they were like saying, oh yeah, he prefers this driver over this driver, and he hates this driver, he likes this driver. Well, now when we look at the latest statement the drivers put together, it looks like everyone has an issue with it.
I don't think it had to be that way. I think just in 2022, he was really harsh on Lewis for watches and earrings and jewelry and stuff, which was just super unnecessary. And then, now with Max, he can't say certain words and
Mm.
without getting community service. So, I mean, the drivers at some point, these guys are full grown adults driving around doing 300 kilometers an hour. They don't need to be told they can't wear an earring or they can't say a word, right? And the broadcast can very easily bleep out these words anyway. So I think he just came in and maybe took the wrong approach, just lost the crowd really quickly, I guess. Especially after 21, like you said, right? There was a lot of pressure on everything involved with the FIA after 21. You had to come in and be mindful of that at least, but I don't think that happened. So
Do you think his term is gonna be over sooner than it should have been finished, or you think he's just gonna be taken down? I know this sounds
I,
crazy
I
saying
wouldn't
it, but
I wouldn't be surprised if he just finished his term entirely. I don't think they're going to see it the same way the fans do, or even the
mm.
drivers do. I'd be surprised if they did.
Do you think it's time to put someone at the FIA who is familiar with other motorsport series that are under the FIA regulation, and as well as Formula One? Because again, look, where all the money is in F1. I don't care. Listen, to anyone I know, I watch WEC, I watch WRC. Not a lot, but I do watch it. And anything that is under the regulations of FIA, I see all those series. And again, I see the improvements the FIA have done during his period of time when it comes to safety and a lot of things. You have to give credit to that. Yes. But the issue is, and he himself said about, well, nobody giving us any credit for the good work we've been doing. Yes, I agree with you. There's a lot of people because a lot of things that's coming out of anything about the FIA, none of it is bright and positive, you know? So it's like
Yeah,
there's good news, and bad, good, bad. So it's like a lot of bad things are overshadowing the good things that FIA is doing, either in other racing series or in F1. So nobody's looking into that. Um, yeah, I just I don't know. I feel like he might not even finish his term. Do you think it's time to bring somebody who's familiar with other more sports series and F1 into that position?
I don't think it could hurt. I think finding the right people for the right job is a really important thing in any organization. And just given how it's gone for him so far, I don't think it could hurt to find somebody maybe a little more qualified on the other series as well. But you're right, the money is in Formula One. I mean, I watch other racing as well. Like I watch MotoGP, and I don't really talk about it much because I don't know, my timeline's just Formula One. But I feel like it definitely wouldn't hurt to take a step in that direction and find more representation in that respect for the other series as well. I think the problem with the FIA right now is just there's a lot of things they get blamed for that isn't even in their control.
Is
Like it
a
could be, there's a line that a lot of the fans don't realize. Like last year when they did those like the big introductions at Las Vegas, right? It was kind of polarizing. Some people hated it, some people liked it. But that's not an FIA thing, right? There's a whole other side there, and people blame them for that kind of stuff as well. So I feel like jumping into the chair is
yeah.
always going to be an uphill battle, especially post 21 in the current state. So whoever jumps into that chair is going to have to do, 150% of the job that they would have had to do in any other regular chair. So I'm not sure the next guy is going to be a guaranteed improvement, but I think it's probably worth looking for an improvement.
I think most of the improvement it should be a PR improvement.
Yeah, big time.
If the PR improvement happen, then everyone will start to see the good work FI is putting together. Um, who would you just out of the blue put a name out there for me? Who do you think of like you know what? I would love to see that guy, the FI president.
Oh man. The first name that popped into my mind is not possible, but just for the sake of for fun, if it was possible, I'd put Nikki in that chair. Uh,
Oh, wow.
I
That's
would
actually
have,
a
yeah.
big, yeah, what he would have done. You know who came to my mind?
Who?
Nigel Mansell.
That's a good pick too. It's a good pick.
I think he would be a good if I were president. I could be wrong, but yeah. Now let's just. I don't want to keep holding you any longer. Thank you very much for being here, but let's get into the predictions. Give me your top three predictions for Qatar. Hold on, is it a sprint weekend this weekend?
Yeah, it is a sprint.
Ooh, construction is gonna be even more spicier. Predictions
Yeah.
for your top three.
Um. Okay, I'll go out and I'll say that Lando wins the race. I'll say he wins the race. I'll say Verstappen wins the sprint. I think we'll see Oscar on the podium, one of the two, and I'll put Lewis Hamilton on the podium as well for the race. So I'll go Lando, Hamilton, Oscar, and then I'll go for the sprint. I'll go Verstappen, Russell, probably Lando.
Nice. I'm gonna go Lando, George, Oscar in the sprint. And I'm gonna go for the P3, Lando in the race. No, hold on. Give me a second. I'm gonna go uh Russell P3 in the race, P2 Lando, and P11 driver. I don't want to say his name and end up jinxing the whole thing because always backfires on me. But I think you know who I mean by that.
Oh yeah, I definitely believe Carlos is going to win that weekend.
Exactly.
We can't say his name.
Can't say his name. Yeah. And on this note, Damien, thank you very much for doing this. I know it's the first time, and I know it's early morning for you over there, but it was my pleasure for having you here with me. And for anyone, obviously, everyone knows who's F1 Clapped. Just follow him on X. And yeah, you can rewatch this either here on X or on YouTube. You're going to find this episode. And thank you very much for being here with me.
No, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you to everyone watching. Thank you and have a good night.